Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. Today we are going to look at the most venomous snakes from the continent of Africa. You're going to meet the usual suspects, but I've also thrown in a couple of my personal favourites. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Let's dive in.
Oh, went right over the glass. Look at that venom and those fangs pumping in. 2-inch fangs, a big gaboon viper. And look at that venom. I tell you what, I got the shakes. Look at that. I'm shaking like a leaf because you are so close to death.
That was the late Dingo Dinkelman, who had an extreme fascination with snakes. Sadly, it ended badly for him. Whatever you say, I mean, whatever the case may be, he certainly had some guts handling a gaboon viper, that's for sure.
Warning, you should never do what I'm about to do. So over here, I'm turning my back to a black mamba, which many of you thought would be impossible. Doing this is to show you that these snakes don't want to come and attack you and bite you and whatever all the stories you hear are, because these snakes are actually highly afraid of you. So every movement you make, they react towards that because they see you as this huge threat towards them.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. The black mamba is a snake that is vastly overrated in terms of how aggressive it is. We've gotten so used to people dramatizing them in content and on TV shows, even, documentaries, that we have come to believe that they really are these crazy snakes. And they're not. On open ground, 9 times out of 10, you are not going to be attacked by a black mamba. It will get away from you.
It's pretty simple.
Twice dunked in the toilet. That Cape Cobra was probably quite angry after that. That's a snake that has what you would call a medically significant bite, and it also happens to find its way into homes quite often. I mean, if it's in a toilet, you can quickly imagine why that could become a medical emergency. You could get a bite in a very sensitive area. Nice cute puff adder there, doing the classic rectilinear motion. The method that essentially boils down to kind of walking on their ribs, but more on their, their ventral muscles really. They're another snake that's quite dangerous, but they're also quite cute to look at, so. Well, now we know why it's called a puff adder. I've got to say that one was quite reluctant to strike as well.
A slight miscalculation makes no difference. Once she's set her sights on a target, there's no chance for escape. Her strike isn't the fastest in the snake world, but at over 20 feet per second, it does the job.
There you saw something quite interesting because that was a gaboon viper striking and then releasing. Ideally a gaboon viper would like to strike and hold on, but it only does that if it's easy and if it thinks it's safe to do so. And people quite often get angry with me because I say that they don't always hang on to their prey. And the truth is that we've been conditioned to think that they do by people who keep them in captivity and create content. And keeping an animal in captivity does change its behaviour. It doesn't always reflect its natural history 100%. So when people start getting upset that I say it doesn't always hang on to its prey, I'm just reflecting my knowledge of them from a natural history perspective in the wild, not just on feeding on dead, frozen thawed rodents in captivity.
This snake was coiled up in a defensive position and then BAM! Didn't look like much, did it? That's until you realize this was a stiletto snake. I've talked about these guys before. They look like little walruses. Their fangs stick out of the corner of their mouth. They're so long.
It's a shame he made the walrus comparison because that makes them sound quite cute and they're really not cute. They're one species that I would only handle with tongs, to be honest. I mean, I just would not attempt to handle them in any other way, personally. They have those specialized fangs that can move any which way they like, basically, and they can get them out the corner of their mouth no matter how you hold them, and they can wiggle and they can get you with a bite, and the venom is just ridiculously painful. And they're so specialized that those fangs, which are located on the maxillae or the maxillary bones in the roof of the mouth, there's even teeth missing behind those fangs to make room for those fangs to fold in. And they're a really highly evolved specialized snake, which is really, really good at dispatching little rodents. And in the next clip, we're going to see why that's important.
Stiletto snakes are totally unorthodox. There's nothing typical about them. They're small, they're wiry, they don't work like normal snakes do.
I've been working with this group of animals for about a year, so I was more comfortable than I should have been.
He was transferring the snake from one container to another.
I had a hook in one hand, and I'm holding the lid with my left hand.
The snake reached over and
Managed to hit my thumb 3 times before I even realized what happened. Initially, it just started to swell. The swelling progressed and became redness, and the redness became blood blisters. This was just within the first several hours.
That's a story I saw on TV quite some time ago, and I just recently saw it again. It's about a guy who gets bit by a captive stiletto snake, and he's the first to admit he was too complacent. I think he was closing the lid and it got him pretty quickly. I mean, they are incredibly quick, as we've seen. What happens to his thumb is not really viewer friendly, and I know a lot of you watch these videos with your kids as well, so if you want to look it up, do look it up and see what happened to his thumb. But I mean, it gets really gruesome, and it's something that basically puts you off keeping stiletto snakes or even going near them, probably. There you saw a wrinkles, which is another medically significant snake in Africa, and it's quite feared, rightly so. It's spitting, it's kind of a cobra, it's not a true cobra, but it spits like a true spitting cobra does, except for its mechanism is a little bit different. It has holes at the end of its fangs, whereas a true spitting cobra, or, you know, like the Mozambique spitting cobra we're going to see in a second, has holes in the front of its fangs, so they can spray venom out. The wrinkles has to kind of fling it, but it's still an extremely good aim.
One of the most feared snakes in Africa is the Mozambique spitting cobra. It can fire the cocktail of toxic chemicals from several meters away.
So there was the Mozambique spitting cobra, and like I said, you can see that its venom spraying mechanism, there's probably a better word that I'm forgetting for it, is very advanced. It's got little orifices in the front of its fangs, and it sprays it out just like squeezing a burst hose pipe, basically, or a pierced hose pipe, and it just sprays it straight out. It allows it to have excellent aim, and that is a species that also, I believe, if the venom gets on your skin, even if it doesn't get in your eyes, it can cause blistering and irritation, and a lot of people turn out to be allergic to it.
Big, massive gaboon. Oy, oy, oy.
Such incredibly huge risks to be taking. With a gaboon viper like that, I mean, the venom yield would be massive, the damage it would do to your tissue would be massive, and anytime you, like, he's going further and putting his hand on its belly, you know, at least a third of the way back from the tail, anytime you get towards the anterior 50% of the snake's body, you are getting yourself much closer to being within range. I know he knows what he's doing, but really that is something I would definitely not attempt. It's also worth mentioning that there's, you know, that would be a level of pain getting bitten by that snake which would be hard to recover from, even psychologically. The last kind of reasonably painful thing I did was breaking my arm and dislocating my radius, and I managed to turn my hand and pop it back in, and then it got x-rayed and avoided surgery but that initial break and popping it in and out was painful and it made me go pale. I'd call that like a 4 on the scale of nasty stuff. But that would be off the scale. That would be above a 10. That would be a level of pain most of us probably couldn't imagine.
Okay, so I allow the snake to reverse. I get it there, come in from behind, and I grip the snake in the tongue there. Right, now I've got it, nice grip. And
that looked like some pretty relaxed, professional style handling of that green mamba. Of course, I say green mamba, there are a couple of species, but that was the eastern one. Those are highly venomous snakes as well. They're very, very fast, and they don't look very big. They've got reasonable sized fangs though, and they're highly neurotoxic, very, very dangerous venom. So yeah, that guy was pretty chilled out considering.
Meet the boom slang. These nope ropes are native to Africa, and drop for drop, they have the most potent venom of any snake on the continent. You know, the same continent that has black mambas and gaboon vipers and cobras. The amount of venom needed for you to meet your maker is such a small amount that you can't see it with the naked eye. That much venom. Can you see that? Trick question, you can't. And the craziest part is their venom is a hemotoxin. That means it prevents your blood from clotting and causes hemorrhaging all through your body.
The boom slang, which means tree snake in Afrikaans, I believe, is a very, very highly venomous species. There's a couple of things to say about this one because I hear stuff over and over and over again that's not always 100% correct, even though that guy's making wonderful content. The first thing that he didn't say, but I hear a lot, is that, well, actually they're rear-fanged, or opisthoglifous, as we're supposed to say, which is a word I forget how to pronounce on a regular basis. But yeah, they're rear-fanged, and they have ridiculously potent venom. But we're told they're rear-fanged, so their fangs are in the back of their mouth, and they need to chew on you to deliver a fatal bite. And that's not strictly true, because even though they are rear-fanged, their fangs are actually quite far forwards. They're pretty much below their eye, and their eye is near the front of their face. So the rear-fanged thing, I'm just going to completely discard that when it comes to the boom slang. It only takes one bite from them to make you pass away. The other thing is saying that the speck of venom it would take to cause a fatality is so small you can't see it is potentially true, potentially not true. A lot of the studies, one particular study that found that to be true was using LD50 tests in mice, and it found it to be a dose of, I think, 0.07 milligrams was fatal to a mouse. A human could be more or less sensitive, but most people think that it would probably take a couple of milligrams, so much, much more to make an adult human my size pass away, for example. But really, 2 milligrams is an extremely tiny amount anyway, so it's not, even though that's an exaggeration, it's not far off. Overall, the boom slang is a very, very, very dangerous snake, but it also tends to be quite calm, and you can probably give it a wide berth and stay out of trouble. That was an absolutely beautiful forest cobra. I know there's about 5 species of forest cobra. They're found throughout most of sub-Saharan Africa, I think, and I believe their venom is, like most of these snakes, medically significant. However, I really don't know much else about them. I could do these videos, rehearse them beforehand, research everything and pretend I knew everything, but I think most of you would probably catch on that that wouldn't be very authentic, and then you probably wouldn't subscribe. And I really do want you to subscribe. So for this one, I'm going to say I really don't know much about them. If you got an interesting fact about forest cobras, please do put it down in the comments.
This is the horned viper, and it is a lot like our sidewinding rattlesnakes here in the United States. These guys live in North Africa and Saudi Arabia. Now, their venom is toxic. You don't want to get bitten. There have been fatalities, but it is nowhere near as fatal as, say, a saw-scaled viper, even though this snake is doing exactly what a saw-scaled viper does.
Well, shout out to DNA Reptiles, because somehow they managed to make it into almost every video that I do, and I quite enjoy their content as well. The horned viper is an interesting one because people have long debated why they have their horns, and there's several different hypotheses, not theories yet, but hypotheses. And the main leading one now is that they are for camouflage, but how you ever make absolute proof of something like that, I really don't know, but they're a fascinating species.
Wow, look at the triangular shape of the head. Looks almost like the tip of a spear. Now, the twig snake specifically is extremely venomous. It is a rear-fanged snake, and the dangerous aspect of this venom is it is highly hemotoxic, and there is no anti-venom. If you're bitten by this snake, it is a very slow, very internally bloody death.
Coyote Peterson resisting the urge to get a venomous thing to bite him, which I think was a good choice in that scenario. The twig snake is interesting. If you remember the boomslang earlier, it's got a broadly similar type of venom, and it also has a venom and a venom yield that could potentially be fatal to a human. But the thing with the twig snake is bites are exceptionally rare. There's probably not more than 5 bites per year from that species. So is it very venomous? Yes, it is, but are you ever going to be near one, even if you live in South Africa? Maybe possibly, but the probability of being bitten is so low. It's really not something that would be a concern as much as, say, cobras, for example. That was the cute little Cape coral snake, a fascinating elapid. That's a snake, again, which has quite strong venom, but doesn't cause many bites. We don't really understand how dangerous it is or not, and as such, there's no anti-venom. But despite this, it is becoming more popular as a pet.
Time to do some sketchy. Doo-dah, doo-dah, hope I get away with it. Oh, doo-dah.
There you saw a Cape Cobra getting ready to stand its ground. I'm kind of curious with that one. I'd love to know what people think. If it was the engine of the Jeep, which was actually getting it riled up. A nice relaxing bush viper video to finish. I didn't know whether I should include them because they're not technically one of the most venomous, but they are just such amazing, beautiful snakes and such amazing features of African herpetology that I wanted to include one, and I just really like them. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you're going to kind of fill my knowledge gaps in the comments and add some perspective to some of these clips. And also I hope you will like, subscribe and come back next week. Thank you very much.